Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday evening to you all. I hope everyone is doing well out there tonight. You had yourselves an awesome Sunday, and I hope everyone had a great weekend out there as it comes to an end, about to head off into another week. Speaking of our week, we got a lot of weather coming up. There's nothing too alarming that I am seeing, but it's kind of one of those things over the next several days that something could uptrend as far as like severe weather. And of course, we are watching two winter storm signals. One looks much larger than the other, but that one that looks much larger than the other is still out in front of us. Even speaking of like early next week out in front of us. So there's a lot of things to talk about. There'll be some big things to talk about in this video and some smaller to kind of medium things to talk about. But we'll have everything sectioned out very well for you folks to take advantage of as far as those timestamps and all those good things. So we'll break it all down in great detail. There's a lot of things to talk about. We'll break down severe weather, winter weather, and everything in between. So if you guys have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. Appreciate all the kind and nice words. I kind of read through some of the comments from yesterday's live video that I made. Thank you all for being so polite. Thank you for all the well wishes from my wife and the congratulation post from my wife, Jenna. If you don't know, she was going to school to become an elementary school teacher, and she does have her degree now. It's just trying to find the school. And we have a good idea what school she's probably going to end up teaching at, but of course, nothing's finalized. But just asking for prayers for her that, and I know that God will deliver on this, that she finds the school that's not that she necessarily wants, but the most that she can make, the school that she can make the biggest impact at, on as far as children and things like that. I think that's the right prayer for that situation. So just asking for prayers for that, and I know you guys will certainly pray over that. And speaking of prayers, if you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. And as you guys know, I typically don't read the comments much over the weekend. I got so much going on the weekend, so I certainly will get caught up with everything tomorrow afternoon when I get some downtime at work. So with all that being said, let's get rocking and rolling. So as always, we'll start off by looking at the radar. Still got some pretty heavy snow flying around across North Dakota mainly. That's about the only state as far as the northern plains is seeing some heavy snow. Scattered moisture about out west. This has been the similar theme over the last several days. Seen some crazy videos out the Sierra Nevada of a lot of 18-wheelers that are stuck. It's pretty wild. I know some people have to travel regardless of the storm warnings, but it just blows my mind that there's so many people stuck out there after all the warnings days ahead of this blizzard coming. But like I said, I understand some people have to travel regardless if there's a storm coming or not. But man, it looked just jammed up. But Florida, seeing those thunderstorms we talked about this morning that had the possibility of happening, and they are certainly firing off, definitely almost like a summer type afternoon, except definitely cooler in Florida. Of course, we know in the summer in Florida, the heat is awful. A little bit of a zoom in by accident there, but we continue to have the moist feed into the Pacific, and that'll be the common theme over the next 24 to 48 hours, and things will eventually calm down. As far as watches, warnings, and advisories, eventually these advisories and warnings will be dropped. Now, we were getting an all-out blizzard up here in Canada, north of the lower 48, up into Canada. I didn't realize that there was blizzard warnings issued, and certainly there was. Red flag warnings in this area in pink, where we have that fire danger. Things very dry out here, so don't mess with any fire. Winter storm warnings up for Northern California, southern sections of Oregon, and you can tell some of these alerts are beginning to get dropped off somewhat in California. It's not as widespread as it was, so things are slowly getting more quiet, so that's good. We need things to chill out a little bit out here, but the winter storm warnings are continuing for Colorado, several counties in Wyoming, Utah, and even though you don't see many alerts up here in Montana or Idaho, there still continues to be snow flying around. There's already winter storm watches ahead of another quick hitting winter storm that's going to move in over the next 24 hours in these areas. Not going to speak much on that, guys. We're going to speak on a lot on the central and eastern U.S., not to leave you guys hanging out west. I've spoke heavily on you folks out there over the last several days, but we're going to speak heavily on the central and eastern U.S. in this video, and might speak a little bit on the western U.S. is talking about how the flow is actually working west to east, just like most weather does. But as far as the Storm Prediction Center for tomorrow, as of right now, Sunday evening, we still have a pretty large marginal risk. covering up almost all of central Texas, not all of central Texas, but a good chunk of it, all of eastern Texas, southeast Oklahoma, pretty much the entire state of Arkansas, and then all of Louisiana, almost right up kind of the western side of the Mississippi Valley. We have a marginal risk extending all the way up to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, all the way to like southern sections of Wisconsin. This does include Chicago, Illinois, through the heart of Illinois. So what is this driven off of? Well, there is a little baby 2% risk of a tornado right up here. And we'll talk about why there's a 2% risk up here. And this includes some of these same similar areas that got that, those severe thunderstorms several days ago, earlier last week. And, these same similar areas will be under the gun again. This area has been very active to begin the year. We got those tornadoes in Wisconsin several weeks ago, or a few weeks ago. I don't think it was, that long ago, but, it's been very active as far as storms in southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois. This has been the epicenter of the severe weather. Typically, you get the worst severe weather in February and March in the deep south. And then as we start to get into April, things start shifting a little bit further, kind of north and west. And then by the time you get into May, you start to get into the heart of the severe weather season for the plains. But it's been a little bit vice versa this storm season so far. Wind threat, just a large 5% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour. And then the hail threat, a 5% risk to see hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger. So I do think we're going to see a slight risk tomorrow at some point. I do. Where are we going to see it? I don't know. I could see there being 2 slight risks, one up here, and then maybe one down here, a little bit larger, or just one or the other. I think if there is one down here, it's more so for damaging winds. I do, but even that is hard to say because you're going to be really lacking kinematics down here, a real forcing mechanism for thunderstorms. So if it's up here, I think it is driven off damaging winds, even a 5% risk of a tornado, because once you get that bump up to a 5% risk of a tornado, that warrants a slight risk. So I could see that being up for like this section right into here, the Midwest. We'll see what happens. As of now, just a marginal risk. We might not get a bump up at all. And I do want to show you for day 3, which is our Tuesday, there is a marginal risk pretty much for the same areas, but only for the south. But we have a risk of thunderstorms all the way up here into southern Ontario, all the way up into the Great Lakes region, lower Michigan. But the severe weather threat looks to be confined to areas of the western deep south, Louisiana, southern Arkansas, Mississippi, extreme eastern Texas. So we're going to focus a lot more on tomorrow. So let's talk about the ingredients driving this. All right. Kinematic-wise, there's not, and when I say kinematics, I'm meaning the favorable wind energy in the atmosphere. What kind of lift do we have? What kind of wind flow do we have? What kind of turning with height do we have? Meaning, how quickly does the winds change direction the higher you get up in the atmosphere, right? And then how fast are they going? Directional shear, speed shear. What do we have out there as far as the kinematics? And then you got thermodynamics. Talk about kinematics first. So we start off tomorrow morning, and we're going to take a look at Pivotal Weather, which can be kind of finicky sometimes, but it's a great, cheap model source. If you're ever wondering what kind of model subscriptions I use, this is Pivotal Weather. You got Weather Bell, you got weathermodels.com, and then you got Tropical Tidbits, which is free, which is an awesome free site. But let's get away from that here as we're getting into midday tomorrow. As you notice, we kind of go back to this, right? Let's go one more panel over. Let's go to about Monday afternoon, tomorrow afternoon. If you notice, very weak mid-level flow right over Arkansas and southern sections of Missouri, even the southern half of Illinois. I mean, you only got like winds going at not that fast, like, 30 to 35, 40 miles per hour in the mid-levels of the atmosphere. I'm talking about like 16 to 20,000 feet up in the air. Not very fast at all. Okay. Up here, it's ripping. Okay. But it's displaced from the favorable thermodynamics. I'll show you exactly what that means here in a second. Now, there is a split flow. This is the northern flow up here. This is the southern flow down here. Northern flow a lot more active than the southern flow down here. Okay. And if you notice, and this is going to make sense when I show you what the HRRR model is showing for tomorrow and really tomorrow night. If you notice, there is a little bit of a forcing mechanism in Texas and certainly in Louisiana, where you have more of a 40 to 50 knot mid-level jet down here. It lessens up right into here, and then where that tornado threat is, which there could be a tornado threat anywhere in this marginal risk, but where you have a 2% risk, you notice it increases to like a 45 to 55 knots mid-level jet. So the kinematics are a little bit more there right up into here, okay? And you kind of keep this in motion. It doesn't change a whole lot. A little bit better forcing really gets going after midnight tomorrow night in like Louisiana, the Gulf Coast line down here. Okay, but there's just really a lack of kind of oomph in the atmosphere for tomorrow. It's kind of in the middle of this marginal risk right in here. That doesn't mean, like for example, if you're in Springfield, the Boot Hill, Missouri, even St. Louis, you're thinking, and we get all the way till like Tuesday afternoon, you're thinking, well, dang, they really butchered the forecast for Monday. We didn't even get a drop of rain. Well, you're lacking forcing. The ingredients are kind of there, but are you going to get the forcing mechanism in the atmosphere to really get those storms going? So, that's huge. Now you look at thermodynamics in same time frame. We look at Monday, all right? Monday morning, dew points in the 60s down here in Texas, Louisiana, Arkansas right into here. Dew points are creeping into the 50s all the way into the Midwest, Missouri, Illinois. Now you start to get into about Monday afternoon. You notice there's a lot of moist air down here in Louisiana. Dew points in the 60s in eastern Texas, Mississippi, Arkansas, up the Mississippi Valley. Lessens somewhat and gets into the 50s up here, right it's pretty much just north of the Illinois-Wisconsin state line. To me, that symbolizes some sort of front right into here. So this is the moisture in the atmosphere, right? And I just want to reiterate this. These are not temperatures. These are dew points. Once you get dew points in the 60s, we'll talk about this a lot more once we have a more significant severe weather event. That's when you'll see Mitch really geek out on you guys. But, this isn't one of those huge events. It could uptrend. We could end up getting a slight risk out of this. But there's a lot of moist air in the atmosphere. We're probably going to get a lot of thunderstorms down here in Louisiana tomorrow night, Tuesday morning, even Mississippi, southern Arkansas. They're really going to produce a lot of rain because there's a lot of moist air in the atmosphere. And you keep this going and, we get into the middle of the night tomorrow night, dew points still in the mid to upper 60s, a lot of moist air down here. All right, but right up here, and this typically is what happens. It's almost like a mini what we call triple point. Where's your best forcing, your best kinematics, your best thermodynamics? Well, the best overlapping of these ingredients is probably up here. So that's where typically your highest tornado threat is going to be, even though dew point's only getting as high as maybe the low 60s. But that is definitely supportive of a tornado threat. So we got to watch up here, right up here in this region tomorrow. So that's why there's a highlighted 2% risk right in this region. So we'll kind of go back to this when we speak a little bit more on more severe weather risk, a little bit deeper into the week this week. But as far as, we spent a lot of time on that. I know I got a lot of time to kill. I got the entire house to myself. So girls are out with their mama out there shopping. So just got a lot of time to spend on this video this evening. But anyways, this is starting off midday tomorrow. If you notice, there's nothing going on. Nothing going on in Texas. We continue to keep this going. We're starting to get just some pop-up showers, maybe from Corpus Christi all the way up to Houston and into eastern sections of Texas. All right. And then we start to get, this is all the way at this point about midnight Central Time. And there's still really nothing going on, this huge marginal risk. Then we start to see maybe some heavy rain developing right into here, maybe some thunderstorms, and then boom, there's a thunderstorm right into here. This looks like a pretty big thunderstorm too, firing up in like northeast Texas, but we could get more widespread storms than what this is showing. Okay, and this kind of continues, and if you notice, I'll show you a better example of this when we show you Louisiana. There's not much storm motion with this. You notice this is like 1 to 2 a.m., these storms are barely moving. It's because there's not a lot of push in the atmosphere to really push these storms one way or the other. So it doesn't show it being very active tomorrow through Tuesday morning in Texas. A few storms, but that could change. Things could look a little bit more different by the time we're waking up tomorrow morning. Now, Louisiana, Same kind of deal. I mean, you take it out to about tomorrow afternoon, you're getting more storms, though, firing up a little bit quicker than you do in Texas. Therefore, down here, you're getting some storms capable of producing some very heavy rain, just a marginal risk of flooding in Louisiana for tomorrow through tomorrow night. I could see that uptrending to a slight risk. We'll see what happens. But as you can tell, a lot of thunderstorms popping up. These are pretty much moving basically south to north in general. But by the time we get to 7, 8 p.m. tomorrow night in Louisiana, these are some big storms rumbling through New Orleans, Baton Rouge. Very well could have some storms up here. And then we start to get closer to midnight. It's around 10, 11 p.m. actually. Some storms up here in southern and southeastern sections of Arkansas. Storms starting to kind of develop along the Mississippi River. And if you notice, really the storm motion really slows down. These storms are just kind of popping up, expanding, kind of shrinking again. I mean, this is like a 2 or 3 hour loop here. Notice this is almost looks like it's outflow boundary driven, meaning they explode, pop off basically rain-cooled air. This allows for more thunderstorm development, and these storms basically implode. They kind of fall apart because of their own cool air. It happens a lot in the summer, not so much March, but it almost looks like that's what's happening. But this is when we can have a bit of a flooding threat that starts to materialize in southeast Louisiana. This is getting into 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday morning, not tomorrow morning, Tuesday morning. Check out all this rain falling out here. And, some of these will be in the form of severe storms, but I think this will be more so. A lot of heavy rain, gusty winds, maybe some hail. So this is something to watch out for. And then we're taking it all the way into our Tuesday. We're still getting big thunderstorms along the Louisiana coastline, up here in Mississippi. Some storms up here in northern Louisiana too. So we take it up here to Arkansas. When we get into Arkansas, Missouri, even the southern half of Illinois, kind of a more trickier states here. But we're already getting some showers ongoing tomorrow afternoon in Arkansas. And then we start to get into tomorrow night, well after the sun sets, right? Some thunderstorms in southeast sections of Arkansas. This very well could be anywhere in Arkansas. It really could. There's a marginal risk in southeast Oklahoma too, guys, but there's just not a lot of thunderstorms really showing up. You got a couple storms showing up, 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, Tuesday morning in southeast Oklahoma right here. But check out these storms kind of exploding around the Little Rock area. Probably going to wake you up Tuesday morning in Little Rock. Maybe not. Maybe around Memphis too, even though just because it doesn't show a storm, for example, over Memphis, that don't mean that there's no chance of a storm being there. This is just one run of the long-range HRRR model. And then check it out. As we are getting to about, midday Tuesday, it's about lunchtime Tuesday. Look at these storms that really explode up into here. Now, this is for Tuesday. This isn't for Monday. You got a marginal risk up here in Missouri for your Monday. But there's not really a whole lot of storms, really. And remember, the risk time frame goes from 12Z one day to 12Z the next. That means basically think of that in tomorrow's case as Monday morning to Tuesday morning. But if you notice, this is starting off Monday morning. Nothing really popping up. You got some storms up here in Iowa, which we'll talk more about here in a second. Let's focus on Missouri and like the southern half of Illinois in this. We're getting into tomorrow evening. Not a whole lot going on. We finally start to see some storms in northern sections of Missouri. I mean, a little bit of storm activity showing up in the Boot Hill, Missouri. This could change though, guys. And then we start to get some storms finally, like tomorrow, like Tuesday morning in the southern half of Louisiana. But all in all, doesn't show a very active scenario. And that's because, remember, we go back to this, and hopefully it'll cooperate with us. We go back to this, and we go back to, this is around Tuesday evening. Lack of forcing in this area. There's not much forcing in this area. And I think the HRRR model does a really great job of indicating that based off no thunderstorms really forming tomorrow much in the area. Now, we look in this region right into here. This is where it could get interesting here in the upper Midwest. Now, you start off Monday morning, just like everywhere else I just talked about. There's not a whole lot going on, right? Some thunderstorms do start to form. There's plenty of forcing up here. Now you're really lacking the thermodynamics up here, the moisture levels. And we talked about that several minutes ago, how, dew points get all the way up into the 50s, low 60s, all the way up to about portions of Iowa, southern Wisconsin. Then there's a stout cutoff between somewhat unstable air and very stable air, drier air. And a lot of this storm activity up here, heavier rain, is in much cooler air, and it's indicated by the stripe of heavy snow kind of getting going here in sections of Wisconsin, right in this region. But you kind of keep this going, right? And by the way, I don't want to ignore the winter weather side of this. I'll kind of mention it in between mentioning the severe weather. If you live up here in northern Wisconsin tomorrow afternoon, even into the UP and Michigan, you could get a slushy quick couple inches of snow. Even though the National Weather Service is not really going for much, snow could fall pretty heavy up here for a time. Very wet snow. But let's focus more so on the severe weather threat. As we're getting into Monday afternoon, Monday evening, it's around 7 to 8 p.m., there's a boundary right into here. Could be in northern Illinois. I think it'll be in southern Wisconsin. These storms right here need to be watched too, right in here in eastern Iowa. If you live anywhere in this region, watch out for these storms. They will easily probably produce hail, and then they could produce a tornado. And this continues, and this is after the sun setting, another nocturnal threat potentially. Even though these storms don't look super serious, you need to take them serious right in here tomorrow, late afternoon, evening, into late evening. Okay, and these will continue. I think there'll be a threat late into the night, but I do think eventually, as we are getting into Tuesday morning, these storms will kind of head off into central Illinois, northern Indiana, and even southern lower Michigan right here into this region. I think you'll be waking up to some storms capable of producing maybe a quick spin up, some hail, maybe some gusty winds into this region. So, and then it'll continue. Take it all the way to Tuesday midday. And even though there's no marginal risk up here, you could certainly get some strong to severe storms into the Ohio Valley, Indiana, into Ohio as we are getting into Tuesday midday. But this is as far out as the HRRR model is going to take us. That's as far out as we'll go at this point. You look at the updraft velocity swath, it really indicates the area of best spin right in here. And you see these random numbers. This is indicated by the updraft velocity swath, but you really look at these colors into here. This indicates where this particular run of the HRRR model is trying to show some rotation with some of these storms. So we certainly could see that. Tomorrow might not end up being a big day at all, but it seems like the common theme this year so far is these little 2 to 5% risk of tornado threats really overproducing. We've already had a few 2% risk days that have really overproduced. So we do need to take these serious. That's why I'm talking so heavily on it. I think this is the heaviest I've ever talked on a marginal risk since doing YouTube. But like I said, I got some time to kill. So there is going to be a quick hitting burst of snow up here in northern Wisconsin, the UP and Michigan with this too. But, I think someone could get a slushy inch or two. I don't think this is going to be a big deal at all. But don't be surprised if you get a burst of really heavy snow up here on the colder side of this kind of severe weather threat. So I do want to mention this is day 4. It says predictability too low. I don't think day 4, as in this Wednesday, will be a big threat. But if we do need to watch out for any thunderstorms, it'll be somewhere in the southeast. As this same system, a low, basically kind of tries to deepen here, but you're really going to be lacking thermodynamics for this setup. I just don't think there's going to be a lot of rich moisture in place, but we'll see. Could certainly end up getting into Wednesday, and there'll be a marginal risk somewhere into this region. So we'll see what happens. And this will be driven off this as we start off Wednesday. This low pressure tries to develop over the southeast. It'll kind of fly over the Carolinas. And as we're getting into about midday Wednesday afternoon, low pressure here. Probably everybody north of this low pressure certainly is too stable for any kind of severe weather. But if you live south of this low pressure, and, southeast and east of it, some thunderstorms are possible. We will watch the eastern Carolinas with this setup. And then, even into, maybe Virginia, the Delmarva region, as we're getting into late Wednesday nights. But this is going to bring a very soggy system to really dominate the middle portion of this coming work week. Wednesday, a lot of rain. This is going to bring probably a pretty significant not winter storm, but rainstorm for areas of the Delmarva Wednesday night. We're getting into Thursday morning. If you notice, there's a cold high up here. This is about to suppress this low pressure and maybe change the directional course of it. But if you notice, you're seeing these splotches of kind of pinks and oranges and blues right in here. This cold air trying to kind of bog down the moisture And as it does, we could get this to turn into some sort of winter weather event across the Northeast. Latest Euro isn't very excited about this, but we'll have to watch it. This could become a more substantial event for Atlantic Canada, which I'm actually going to, show you guys on the fly. I actually didn't have any panels pulled up for you folks in Atlantic Canada. Shame on me, right? But we'll show you guys on the fly here, show you guys some love. And here's the same system. And it's the same kind of setup. Cold air is trying to bog down on the northern precipitation shield of this. This would bring, if something like the Euro was to happen, a winter storm for areas of southern New Brunswick, maybe sections of Nova Scotia. This run, keeps it as rain on the southern areas and southwestern sections of Nova Scotia, but then hits folks a little bit further inland with not only snow, but you got this corridor of ice too, guys. And that's something we need to watch out for. Prince Edward Island, you guys certainly need to watch out for this. All right, we'll get a little bit more detailed as, we move a little bit forward, but just kind of taking a more broad look at this. I want to see how the model runs come in. Prince Edward Island, though, you guys certainly need to watch. Nova Scotia, New Brunswick. Check out this storm as it continues and ends up turning into more of a significant winter storm for New Brunswick as this thing really gets amped up. But look at this corridor pink. You don't like to see that. That's freezing rain as we are getting into Friday. So this is a system to watch for you folks. It really is. It's not too far out ahead of us. It's inside the next 5 days or 6 days or so. Rainfall between now and Thursday evening, it's going to be a lot of it. And then, right behind this is another system too, guys. A lot of rain in this area from what's going to happen between now and the next couple of days. And then this low forms, drops a rain bomb on areas of the I-95 corridor of the Mid-Atlantic into southern New England. A lot of rain into this region. So we'll watch. There is a snow signal from this. And, here it is. Even though the latest Euro was not very excited at all about any kind of winter weather with this, the European Ensemble begs to differ here and actually shows a 2-inch snowfall mean for Boston for this. So it's something we need to watch here. Shows a solid snowfall mean into Maine, almost the entire state of Maine, New Hampshire, Vermont, and we'll even take a look into Atlantic Canada for you folks too. And let's see if we can do this in centimeters here. I don't know if it's going to, yep, it will. We're good to go. All right, here we go. Pretty solid signal for you folks. Right, here it comes. This is in 2-day increments. Getting into Friday morning. That's a solid signal. What I think 30 centimeters is a foot of snow. So most of this signal is below that foot range, but there is a solid signal in this range as we're getting into Friday into our Saturday for all these areas right into here. New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, Newfoundland, maybe 10 to as much as 30 centimeters of snow. We just got to fine tune this as we get a little bit closer for you folks. So as far as what's coming, the next thing you watch after we get rid of all this into the mid to late week is you see this blue blob out here in the Pacific and over the west. This indicates lower pressure. These warmer colors and the oranges and reds indicate higher pressure. So this area of lower pressure is going, the specific kind of upper trough, upper low is going to enter the southwest. As it does, we'll stop it here. This is around Thursday, 21Z. It's around Thursday afternoon. We're probably going to get, and I wish I had my thing to draw here, but, we're going to pull it up on the fly. We're going to do something on the fly here. Let's see if we can do it here. Just give it a minute. It'll come up. Yeah, we're good to go. So, big upper trough, upper low right here. This is likely yanking up moist air on the eastern side of this upper low. And as this continues to progress this way, it'll continue to pull up more moist air, more moist air. So I'm going to get this in motion here. And let's get this kind of back off your screen here. And as it continues to move, then for sometime Friday, you're probably going to have some sort of severe weather threat, maybe right into here. We back it up to Thursday. Could be more so around Texas, Oklahoma, somewhere right into here. Okay, as we start to move like I said, into Friday, could be more so a little bit positioned a little bit further east into Arkansas, Louisiana, eastern Texas, eastern Oklahoma. We got to figure this one out. And then we continue to progress this into Saturday, which is getting kind of far out. This thing looks like it kind of changes. It still looks like it's positively tilted, not a very strong system, but there could be some severe weather across the deep south for Saturday. How far north is this moist air going to get and get pulled up from this upper trough? We still need to figure that one out. And if you look, the first thing we'll look at is kinematics, okay? And we'll look at, this is Wednesday morning. And what you'll notice here is we're getting all the way to about Thursday afternoon. This is that upper trough. You see how things are digging right into here, this dip in the jet. Still a little bit of a split flow with a little jet up here too. But you see how these wind barbs, if you look really closely right into here, this is indicating with the flag pointing to the southwest. That means winds are coming out the southwest. This is pulling up rich, moist air from the south in general for the southern sections of the world. Mexico and even the Gulf of Mexico pulling moisture out. So this will continue to dig, which if you notice here, you got this 60, 50, whatever it's going to be, 70 knot mid-level jet. This is providing forcing for thunderstorms probably in this area right here. Okay, and we continue to move this forward. We're getting into our Friday. A lot of forcing for thunderstorms right into here. Okay, certainly kinematics are very favorable across the deep south. If it's not going to be severe weather, we're probably going to get storms regardless. And then we get into our Saturday afternoon, evening-ish, and this starts to kind of evolve a little bit differently. And of course, this could change, but you notice a lot of wind shear across the southeast, providing the oomph in the atmosphere for thunderstorms that we'll watch out for this area. The next thing you compare that against is the thermodynamics. What is our moisture return going to be like? Well, if we look at Thursday afternoon, it's there, across areas of Texas, even some dew points into the 60s in Oklahoma, even some, decent moisture levels into Kansas and Missouri. Okay, it's certainly there across Louisiana. And then we start to move into our Friday. You get a cold front associated with this upper trough, just like you always do, whether it's strong or weak. It just depends on the system. But look at this pool of dew points getting into the low 70s, Louisiana. And just a lot of moist air. Dew points scattered in the 60s and 70s down here, some 50s. But if you notice, the deep moisture isn't getting pulled super far north, which you typically don't see in early March. And then we take it into our Saturday. Okay, a lot of deep moisture down here this coming Saturday. Okay, could be a severe weather threat across Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama. Not sure. We still need to figure this one out. But this is a lot of stuff kind of crammed in between right now and the next 7 days. And then we're going to talk about something else, which is this same system, but the winter weather side of this too. So the theme is here, what we'll watch for from the Storm Prediction Center over the next couple updates, and it might show it as we wake up tomorrow morning. What we'll watch for is, are they going to introduce 15% risk areas for day 4 through 8 somewhere? What are they going to do? We got to figure that one out. But if we look at moisture as far as what we just showed you, we'll start off Thursday morning. There's a low right in here with some rain already developing across the southern plains, and we keep this going here, and we take it into Thursday afternoon, Thursday evening. It just shows us in the form of rain, but this could very well be thunderstorms. This is still global models, guys. These aren't short-range models. But then we start to get into our Friday. Shows a more widespread system. Could get snow back here in the Rockies, the Front Range. Something to watch. There's a lot going on here. And then we start to, get into our Friday evening. Another low could develop down here with another big, huge influx of moisture. And then we'll go on to shift this to the eastern U.S. as we're getting into our Saturday morning. And, here it is. This is around Saturday evening, 6 days from now. What kind of weather are we figuring out? It looks very messy across the eastern U.S. Too warm for snow from this model run for like lower Michigan. A lot of rain across the Ohio Valley. Another soggy weekend potentially for the southeast and eastern U.S. I don't think we're ever going to get our second soccer game in at this point, folks. But You start to move into Sunday morning, March the 10th, and then this is when it gets interesting. Well, what's going to happen here? You got some cold air up here. You're going to have a transfer of lows right here. You got a 987 millibar low about a week from right at this moment. Shows nothing but rain for southern New England. Shows snow in the interior northeast. But then cold air gets involved. We got a 9 to 80 millibar low next Monday morning. And then we got very heavy snow and almost a nor'easter type evolution right up here. And then this kind of fades away. Okay. GFS, a little bit different, a little bit more cold air, which typically is always the case. And we're going to I actually hadn't even looked at this run yet because this is new. But here it comes, kind of two different lows, a low down here, low up here, which becomes the dominant low. There's already a lot more cold air involved as we're getting into Saturday evening. And I think that's the difference here, guys, is the GFS moves this entire storm complex through to this area much quicker. For example, on the European for Saturday evening, you still got a lot of moisture way back here. For the GFS Saturday evening, most of this moisture is cleared across the deep south a little bit here and there. But as you continue to keep this going, this turns into a pretty significant winter storm across the interior northeast. Now, are we going to get any kind of winter weather, for other areas too? One thing the models keep showing is sometime at the end of next weekend, early next week, is some backside energy that kind of flows in behind this, but there's no connection to this energy. Therefore, you really don't get anything substantial. But I think we need to watch that storm signal for late weekend, this coming weekend, into early next week. And the signal is a lot stronger for that too. For example, this is the first storm signal. This is the first storm system, right? Kind of Thursday night into Friday. There it is in the Saturday morning. And if you look immediately behind it, here comes the next one. If you notice, quite obviously here, the snow signal for these areas is a lot higher. A several inch snowfall mean in some of these areas, especially the Adirondacks, Green and White Mountains, higher elevations of Maine, and even a little signal all the way down into southern New England. We need to watch this one. This one could be more substantial, but there's still a lot of mixed signals. So that was a long one, guys. That's all I got. Thank y'all for tuning in. God bless all y'all, and y'all have a wonderful rest of your weekend and a great start to your week. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow morning. God bless.